All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're going to talk about Errol Spence Jr. and an interview that he had on a podcast called the Pivot Podcast, in which he detailed what took place between him and Floyd Mayweather Jr. in sparring. Absolutely excellent interview and eye-opening comments by Errol Spence Jr. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. We in the welterweight division talking about Errol Spence Jr. in an interview that he gave on the Pivot Podcast, where he reveals details that took place between he and Floyd Mayweather Jr. in their, I think it's fair to say, legendary star-making sparring match that they had. But before I get into that, let me welcome you back to the channel. Thank you guys. If you are a supporter of the channel, a regular subscriber, thank you so much for your support. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. All right, so let's get into this, man. Errol Spence Jr., the WBC and the IBF welterweight champion, will be fighting Yordenis Ugas this Saturday in Dallas, Texas for a 3-belt unification fight. In the lead into this fight, he's giving a lot of interviews on different podcasts, just giving a lot of different interviews to magazines and such. And, you know, it's very, very rare for me, because I watch most all of Errol Spence Jr.'s interviews, to get some things where you really get some fresh questions and get some fresh perspectives from him. And this interview really was one. The highlight of the interview was when he talked about what took place between him and Floyd Mayweather Jr. when they sparred, when he was a 2-0 fighter who just began his career, who went to Mayweather's training camp for Mayweather to prepare for Robert the Ghost Guerrero, and what he saw and what he learned in that training camp. And then, of course, you know, what actually happened to him with them when they sparred, right? So the line went like this, man. Obviously, the biggest line in this whole thing was when he said that he went into the ring with Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Floyd Mayweather Jr. They were sparring with no minutes, right? There was no basically 5-minute rounds, 6-minute rounds, 7-minute rounds. And he said, you know, look, man, I wasn't scared of Floyd when I got there. He said that's not how I'm built. He said, look, man, I'm like that. So I felt like, you know, I was going to get my thing. And when they had that whole dog house going and people beating on the side of the ring, he said, look, I just really felt into it and I was ready to go. So he was giving work to Floyd. Floyd was giving him work. He said he was being, like, the way he described it was like, nah, it was, you know, he described it as if it was even work, good work. But he said, look, when he got out of the ring the first time, he said, Floyd turned to him saying, you are right for a BITCH. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, man, you all right. You a good fighter for a BITCH. He's like, no, man, you're not going to do me like that. And he's like, nah, let's get back in the ring. Let's get back in the ring with no minutes, right? And go back at it. So they got back in the ring, went back at it again, right? Eventually, you know, they just kept going at it and the sparring session ended. He was clear in saying that he didn't feel like he dominated Floyd Mayweather Jr., but, you know, at the same time, you know, it was pretty evident that he got a lot of really good work in there. So, I mean, it was just very, very interesting to hear him say that, man, and kind of reenact that and show the personality that he has, because in the rest of the conversation he's had in the interview and the things that I thought were really, I mean, they were really honest, right? Like Errol Spence Jr., to me, one of the things I like most about him is that he is somebody that is forthcoming, and he's not going to give you like really plain answers and not think about the answer to the question. He is conscientious when he answers questions, and he gives them honest, well thought out answers. So, you know, he was asked about things like, you know, how did the car accident affect you? And, you know, what did you go through? What is that? You know, what do you think your weaknesses are? And where did you learn? And the thing that I really like, man, is that he pretty much can confess to a lot of the things that were being said about him before that car accident. I've had Errol Spence Jr. on my channel before. I have definitely talked to other people in the Dallas area. I'm not too far from there, and there was concern from from people about Errol and how much weight he was gaining in between fights and how much he was spending his time partying and doing different things, right? And he explained that. And he said, "Look, before that car accident, my career might have been on its way to being over because of the way that I was approaching the game. But with that car accident, it really did get me back to where I was when I originally started my career, right? Because like when you're fighting, you start your career off. The amateurs, you're fighting a bunch of times a year. You're always in the gym. You're always working. When he turned pro, he was fighting 7-8 times a year. So he's always in the gym, or he's always either preparing for a fight or getting in, or in the gym. He's either having a fight or in the gym preparing for a fight. But he's like, look, when I started getting the big paychecks, it would be like 3-4 months of me not having to do anything until it was time to get into the ring and prepare for the fight. So he said he always had the discipline inside the ring, right? Which reflects itself in the story that you hear about with him and Floyd Mayweather Jr. But then he had lost his dedication, or he lost the focus that he had when he was not preparing for the fight, right? And making sure that you keep your weight down, that you're staying in shape, you're exercising up, keeping yourself in decent shape. You don't have to be in absolute tip-top shape where you're wearing your body down or putting too much stuff on your body, but that you needed to do that, up until the time that you have the fight. And that's why he got the benefit of him living at a ranch is now that he has, different, goats to take care of, chickens to take care of, horses to take care of. It's something to get him out of the bed when he doesn't have to prepare for a fight, and gives him a routine of things to do, that complement the sport of boxing and really do keep him focused, right? So all in all, man, it was just a really, really terrific interview. It was very, very nice to hear his perspective on life. And just kind of like overcoming some of the things like the mental issues or mental challenges that he had from being in a situation where he almost lost his life, and him being honest and forthcoming enough to give that people to people in an interview, because I think it's something that people really can learn from, can appreciate. Also, as a father of somebody of kids that play sports, or if you have kids that play sports, there was a section of the interview that was just very enlightening about the relationship between him and his father, and how his father related to him and was pushing him, didn't allow him to quit boxing, but didn't push him so hard in boxing that it was scared him away from the sport, right? Gave him the room to make decisions for himself and to be the leader of his own career himself, but yet give him that give him that structure around him, that allowed him, that contributed to his success, man. So it's just all around, man, excellent. I tell you, if you haven't had a chance to listen to the interview, listen to the interview. He also, with the interview, was very clear again. Like, look, I got 3 belts. Once I get past Yordenis Ugas in a dominant one-sided performance, then I'm not leaving 147 pounds until I get to Terrence Crawford, right? He said, and he was very clear, I'm not leaving the welterweight division until I get that fight with Terrence Crawford. So very, very good, very, very good interview, very enlightening information. Definitely go check it out. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section. And again, if you're not a member of the community and a member of the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you can get all the notifications of when we release more videos. And with that, I'm out. Peace.